Hi, everybody. My name is Shelby Dwyer, and I'm a counselor at University Health and Counseling Services. I'm spinning this chair as my colleague, Luca, my cat, is over here, but I don't know, he usually likes to sit in that chair. Do you want to come say hi? So, again, my name is Shelby Dwyer. I'm a counselor at University Health and Counseling Services. I'm also a certified yoga teacher. This is Yoga for Mental Wellness in partnership with the Center for Spirituality, Dialogue, and Service. I am not sure if y'all are streaming live in the sacred space, but if you are, hello, and I miss that space. It's so beautiful. And there goes Luca. He might be back. So, as always, please take care of your body. Do what's best for you. All of the poses that I offer to you are just suggestions. They're not anything that you have to do. You know your body best. You are the expert of your body. So if something doesn't feel right, gently, kind of move yourself out of that shape or find something different that works better for you, and trust that you'll know when something maybe is too much. Throughout the practice, we are going to be doing another yin practice similar to like we did last week. And this practice today is going to be focusing on the liver and gallbladder meridians in the body. So I'll talk a bit more about those as we go on. But in this practice, one of the main things is that we're actually targeting the connective tissues in the body. So Yin Yoga, as opposed to like a Vinyasa Yoga or Hatha Yoga, it's not this fast-paced, one movement per breath, or even like multiple breaths, maybe 5 breaths in one shape. It's coming into a shape, finding our edge in that shape, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then holding for up to sometimes 8 minutes. We're not going to do that as long in here because we've only got an hour together. But you notice that it's holding a pose for quite a bit longer time than what you're used to. But the idea is that by holding poses and coming into a shape, finding our edge, which means we want to find maybe like a 4 or 5 out of 10, where 10 is this is so uncomfortable, I cannot be in this shape anymore, and 1 is I can fall asleep here. So finding our edge in that shape where we feel some discomfort in specific parts of our body, that is what actually applies pressure and stress to the connective tissues in the body, which actually helps them become more resilient and stronger, more lubricated, more juicy. So like you might hear me say juicy at one point today. It's like the only time I think a yoga teacher can actually say juicy, because Yin Yoga is actually rehydrating your body, the connective tissues, the fascia, and your joints. Funny, whatever. So throughout the practice, I'll invite you to relax the muscles in your body as well. There might be some moments where we're using our muscles to kind of keep ourselves up, but if we engage our muscles, we're not going to target the connective tissues. So I'll remind you of that as we kind of go along. The only thing you're going to need today is a cushion or a blanket for underneath like your knees. If you need some support, you might need them at some point. You can bring 2 blocks or a stack of books nearby in case you need it, but hopefully the sequence today was designed so that you won't need anything. If you do need props, let me also just say there's no shame in that. Like, use props. Yin Yoga loves props. Shelby loves props, okay? Props to props. All right, enough talking. Go ahead, lay back down on your mat. Back down. I don't know, maybe you were laying on your mat. But go ahead and bring your feet to the edges of your mat, the long edges of your mat, and then knock your knees together. You'll see me periodically check my Fitbit. That's just me checking the time to make sure that I'm not keeping us in any shape for too long. And once you're here on your back, on your mat, just go ahead and settle in. Fidget as much as you need to. I know for me it feels good to kind of widen my shoulders a little bit. Maybe lifting my hips up and then forward so that I can create a little bit more length in my spine. You might rest your hands on your belly or keep them alongside you, palms face up or down, whatever feels more comfortable for you. Alternatively, if you want to target these meridians, the liver and gallbladder meridians, I'm blanking on which one specifically it is. I think it's the liver. You can bring your arms into a goalpost shape above your head. So your elbows bent out to the sides, your forearms and your hands parallel with your face, just framing your face. And by having your arms in this goalpost shape, it creates a bit more of an opening across the chest. You might even feel like a gentle sinking toward the ground where your shoulders are. It's a good reminder for me. Lift your head and tuck your chin toward your chest, then lower your head back down just to make sure that your chin is parallel with the earth beneath you. We want to support our cervical spine, the back of our neck. And continue to lie here on your mat, maybe with your eyes open or closed, whatever feels more comfortable for you. And as you're lying here, I'm going to read to you just a little bit about these liver and gallbladder meridians. So the meridians in the body are from traditional Chinese medicine. Yin Yoga actually originated in traditional Chinese medicine, and so it focuses a lot on the 5 elements, the change of seasons, these meridians in the body, which are known as sort of energy channels in the body. And the idea is that when we experience maybe a blockage in one of these meridians, or if energy, qi, as it's called in traditional Chinese medicine, if the qi is not sort of flowing freely through these meridians, we might experience some side effects. So that could mean literally pain in our body. It could mean anxiety, symptoms of anxiety. It could mean some sort of gastrointestinal issue, right? Like stomach things, food allergies, or not food allergies, food sensitivities. So the idea that if the energy gets stuck in a meridian, it causes an imbalance in our body. Yin Yoga targets those connective tissues, which also actually targets the meridians in the body, and therefore starts to move that energy and kind of massage it out to help it flow more freely. So to be transparent with you all, and in honor to make sure I'm really working towards not appropriating my yoga practice, and in particular with Yin Yoga, wanting to really give credit where credit is due and honor the lineage of Yin Yoga. So I thought that it might be helpful to just start incorporating some of the meridians into our practice. So the liver meridian, and while you're lying here, I'll invite you to maybe just sort of follow your attention and your awareness with the parts of the body that I mentioned. The liver meridian begins at the top of your big toe, runs along the inner leg just above the kidney meridian. It enters the torso through the groin and goes through the liver and gallbladder into the lungs, up through the throat and into the head, circling the lips and then moving up towards the eyes. The gallbladder meridian begins at the outer corner of the left eye and travels down the lateral side of the body to the outer hip. An internal branch goes through the neck and chest into the liver and gallbladder. It runs down into the outer knee and ends in the 4th toe. So basically what we can sort of remember throughout our practice is the liver meridian focuses more on the inner leg line, the groin, also comes across our side waist, opens up through the chest, comes up through the throat, surrounds the lips, the eyes. The gallbladder meridian focuses a bit more on the outside of the body, so the outer legs line, outer side of our waist, rather than a little bit closer toward our midline. And then up along around the ear and the side of the head. And I know it's said a few times, it goes through this. These are not invasive things in our body, just so that's clear. And from what I understand, which is very limited knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine, that these meridians are just these naturally occurring channels within our body. Go ahead and hug your knees to your chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Maybe gently rock from side to side. You might even extend your legs up towards the ceiling for a moment. You all know I love this shape. And just notice what it's like to have your legs inverted for a moment. And then slowly bend your knees back toward you. And then just kind of slowly roll yourself over to your side. And we're going to move into a wide-kneed child's pose. So you might line yourself up so that your knees come to the edges of your mat, the long edges of your mat. You'll sink your hips back toward your heels and gently then start to melt your torso in between your thighs. The goal is that you might remember this from past classes if you've done this with me, is that you want to really root your pelvis down and grow your torso long out of your hips. So while I'm melting my torso, sometimes I shimmy my hips from side to side, and that helps me just create a bit more space and length in my side waist. And then you can reach your arms forward, but then let the arms relax. Maybe rest your forehead onto your mat. And it's okay, if your hips are up here and far away from your heels, you might bring your cushion or a blanket to rest on top of your heels and potentially for your seat to meet. But you might find that the more you practice this shape, the more sorry, I need to move my water bottle because I keep knocking it over. You might find that your hips do naturally slowly start to sink more toward your hips. It's important to remember that every body is different anatomically. And so for me, I have really open hips and I'm pretty flexible. So this shape comes kind of naturally to me. But that doesn't mean that my body is better at yoga than your body. So here in this wide-kneed child's pose, notice your breath against your thighs. See if you can breathe into the full circumference of your ribs and your midsection, so allowing your torso to really flare out side to side as well as front to back. If it feels good, you can rock your head gently from side to side just to massage out your forehead. Some people hold a lot of tension there. See if you can also really let your heart melt forward. Simultaneously, your hips are heavy against your heels. Tune into your body for a moment. Tune into your brain, your thoughts, your emotions. Notice how you're feeling right now without judgment, just merely noticing what your experience is in this shape. And here in wide-kneed child's pose, as we target more of the liver meridian, kind of through the spine. Some sensation within your body might not feel comfortable, or maybe it feels like there's some tightness. See if you can breathe into those spaces. Maybe imagining your breath following the channels of meridians through your body. Each inhale maybe massages out any tension that you might be experiencing in your body. And each exhale releases any of that tension. Letting your shoulders melt towards the floor, just like your heart. and your hips. Maybe sighing out the mouth from time to time if that feels useful. You've been in this shape for several minutes. Notice if anything maybe has shifted from when you first came into this pose. Notice if maybe sensation in the top of the thighs or the groin, the inner leg line, if it feels a little less intense than it did when we first started. When you're ready, take a big breath in. Exhale, push through your arms to straighten your torso upright. Bring your knees close together for a moment. And you might stay upright here, seated on your shins. You could bring your weight forward into your hands, tuck your toes, and then come to sit on your toes, on your heels, with your toes tucked, Sitting with your toes tucked is going to stretch the backs of your feet. If you would just we've been putting a little bit of pressure on the tops of the feet. So this is a nice way to sort of counteract that. Alternatively, if you want to maybe go back on the ground, you're feeling like being upright is a little activating, you could always bring your knees close together and do a closed-kneed child's pose, like this. Sometimes I get a wicked stuffy nose, though, if I have myself in child's pose for too long, so I'm going to stay upright with my toes tucked. And we won't be here for too long. You might keep your eyes open and have a soft gaze at a non-moving point, or maybe you close your eyes. But you'll notice throughout the practice that after a specific pose or in between sides, we pause. And in Yin Yoga, that's known as the rebound or resonance pose. And it allows the body a chance to return back to equilibrium, return back to its normal habitual state. It allows the connective tissues to return back to their state after being applied some pressure and stress. As you feel ready, come to lie down on your belly, on your mat. I'm going to spin around this way. And you'll bring your forearms parallel to one another. So it's as if your forearms were in, let me see, I'll come stand upright, in like an 11. Fingers will be spread wide on the mat, and elbows will be just in front of your shoulders. You can probably see better here. And the further away you walk your arms in your forearms, the less compression you'll experience in the low back. If your arms are higher up, bringing your elbows underneath your shoulders, that's going to increase the arch in my spine, the back bend that I'm experiencing, and I do feel an increase in pressure in my low back. My legs behind me, I have wider apart, a little bit wider than hips width distance apart, as that also offsets compression in the spine. If I bring my legs closer together, it sort of tightens everything up and amplifies the pressure in my low back. So find what works for you. Decide on the varying length or width, of your legs that you'd like, as well as where you want to position your arms. Be mindful that you're not winging your elbows out to the side. We want to have real disciplined forearms and that like 11 shape, parallel to each other. Notice if you're kind of sinking forward and your shoulders are up by your ears, can you lower your shoulders away from your ears? And then at the same time, maybe experiment with gently pushing your heart through your upper arms so as to slowly kind of bring the shoulder blades together. You can lower your chin toward your chest to allow your head to kind of hang in between your hands. That might not feel so great. If you have any sort of like migraine issues, you don't want to do that. You can keep also your head in line with the rest of your spine. So keep your neck in line with the rest of your spine by tucking your chin slightly and gazing just above your thumbs, or maybe in line with your fingertips or the top edge of your mat. I needed this reminder myself, but relax your feet, relax your legs, your glutes, so your bum, your back. Your arms are exerting some effort to hold you up. Your neck might be exerting some effort to hold your head upright. But can you allow the rest of your body to really just relax and be heavy against your mat? We won't be here for much longer, maybe a minute or so. Remember that action of really rooting your pelvis down and growing your spine long out of your hips. Really breathe deeply into your belly here. Take a big, deep breath in. Exhale, sigh it out. Inhale, begin to kind of tuck yourself back up and coming into all fours. Keep your knees where they are. Actually, just kidding. Start to walk yourself up a little bit, excuse me. And you'll come to so that you're about halfway on your mat. Your knees will be hips width distance underneath you. And then you're going to bring your left knee to just behind your left wrist. Your right foot will be somewhere behind your right hand. Slowly begin to slide or pick up and then slowly sink back your right leg so that you can sink your hips low to your mat, so forward and down. You might bring one hand behind your back just to make sure that you're not sinking into one hip. We want to have our hips parallel to the ground beneath us. So that might mean that you need a cushion underneath your left hip just to prop it upright, because that's typically the hip that people tend to sink in when you're on the left side. And then once you kind of set yourself up well, don't worry, you hear a lot in yoga that the front shin has to be parallel to the top edge of your mat. Don't worry about that. Again, in this shape, we're trying to find a 4 or 5 out of 10 on a scale of discomfort. So once you feel like you're set up well, your hips are level to the ground, slowly begin to bring yourself onto your forearms. I don't know if you could hear that, he meowed. If being on your forearms, you're like, oh, okay, I think I could go a little bit deeper. Maybe you rest your forehead on the back of your hands, palms stacked on top of one another. Just letting yourself melt into the ground. Again, staying upright on forearms or even with your arms in front of you, but straightened is a good place to be. If you decide you're going to keep your arms straight, if that feels better for your back and your hips, spin your elbow creases so that your elbow creases point forward toward your hands, toward like your middle finger, rather than kind of keeping the elbows bent out to the side. And now here in the shape, this is one of the first ones that we're doing where actually I think for me personally, it feels like a bit more sensation. And so in particular here, you might feel some pressure on the outside of your left hip, or maybe even in the hip flexor of your left leg. The hip flexor is the part where your hip and your thigh meet, sort of allows you to do certain, keeps you mobile, basically. You may also experience some pressure across the outside of your left leg, maybe even in a little bit of pulling across the left knee. You might feel a gentle tugging or pulling across the inner leg line of your left leg, the groin as well. Maybe even like a stretching across your left glute, so your left seat. If you're rounding forward, you might feel a spreading and melting of your shoulder blades down to the ground as your torso kind of cascades down over your leg. You might also notice some stretching across the hip flexor of your right leg, the leg that's straight behind you. We want to feel a heaviness in our hips, relatively little weight or pressure in the left knee. If you notice that you're feeling a lot of pressure, bringing the right heel closer to your right hip might alleviate that. Alternatively, if this shape, which is Sleeping Swan, if it feels like it's too much, you can always thread the needle on your back, which I'll show now. So again, if you are comfortable in Sleeping Swan, staying there, but if it doesn't feel as accessible, coming into thread the needle, where you'll come into figure 4 legs, thread your hands so that they wrap around your right thigh, and then bring your left elbow into your left thigh to press it outwards a little bit while also hugging your right thigh toward you. You might flex through your feet, but that gets at the same exact sensation and stretch that we're achieving in Sleeping Swan. So wherever you are, either Sleeping Swan or Eye of the Needle, finding what works for your body. And then allowing yourself to settle into the shape in relative stillness. We'll be here for maybe less than a minute. Breathing deeply and fully in and out through your nose, or in through the nose and out through a sigh out the mouth. Big breath in here. Exhale, straighten through the arms. Swing your right leg forward. And then bring your left foot outside of your right hip. I'm going to come at a little bit of an angle. Let me actually switch legs for you because I'm mirroring you now. So your left foot will be just outside of your right thigh, or maybe outside of your right hip. Your left knee will be sort of aiming up towards the ceiling. We'll move into a spinal twist. Sorry, I got a little dizzy when I came up. I haven't had enough water today. So we'll move into a seated spinal twist. But unlike before we start moving, unlike other classes, the goal is not necessarily to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. We're going to find our edge, and then we're going to hold in relative stillness. And then if we find maybe after a few minutes it feels too intense, always you can pull out of it. If it doesn't feel like it's enough, you can go deeper. So big breath in here. Exhale, slowly twist towards the left, maybe bringing your left hand behind you, maybe wrapping your right arm around your left thigh. And again, finding where that twist is at a 4 or 5 out of 10. So not too intense, not too easy or uncomfortable, or not too Gentle. There we go. Not too gentle, not too intense. In this shape, we're really getting into more of the gallbladder meridian because we're twisting and part of it goes through our side body, that meridian. You might imagine that breathing deeply massages your internal organs here. Relax your feet, relax your legs. Sorry about that. I had to close my door. So here in this shape, you might feel almost like your spine is sort of a corkscrew, and there might be some pressure across your upper right back, maybe along your whole spine, maybe a stretch across your outer left thigh, outer left glute. Take a long, full breath in here. Exhale, slowly unwind. Release your left leg to meet your right. And then maybe for a moment, just kind of fold forward, reaching for your ankles. You might very gently move your spine towards the right, excuse me. But we don't want to twist too deeply yet because we've just really contorted our spine to the left. So maybe just kind of folding forward for a moment, rounding your shoulders forward. Maybe bring your hands behind you, push your shoulder blades together so that you can kind of push your heart upwards. And then you'll bring your left ankle just above your right knee, coming into sort of like a half figure four shape. And you'll have your right leg long. You can see this, I'll move to the side. Okay, I'm gonna switch because now I'm no longer mirroring you. But so again, left ankle is just above your right knee. Your right leg is long. You might stay here, pressing your knee or left knee towards the earth. Maybe you bring your hands alongside you and you keep a really long spine. This, where I'm just sitting upright, actually gets more into the back, not necessarily more, but right now for me, I'm experiencing a stretch across the back of my right leg. You might begin to walk your hands forward so that you can fold forward over your legs. That's definitely going to increase the stretch across the back of your hamstrings in your right leg. It may also increase the sensation in your hip flexors, maybe more so in the right hip flexor. It may also encourage more of that external rotation of your left hip, where the left leg is kind of coming out to the side, the left thigh, whereas my right leg is neutral and not in an opening shape. So find what works for you, maybe reaching your hands toward your right foot, walking yourself so that your torso kind of rounds and spills forward over your legs. You can also stay upright here, whatever works for you. Again, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10 and then holding for relative stillness. It's a good reminder, again, to have that visual of really rooting your hips down And then really growing your spine long to reach up and over your legs, whether you're rounding or keeping a straight spine. So you've been in this class or this group for more than half the time. Might be a good moment to sort of check in with your own internal environment, check in with your thoughts and emotions again, and just kind of see where you're at. Notice how you're feeling or what you're thinking without judgment, and also see if you can practice a parigraha, non-attachment, which is one of the yamas from yoga, specifically the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Wow, sorry. So dehydrated today, can't think straight. I think right now, with everything being so virtual and classes starting this week for most of the students, things kind of picking up maybe in our lives, we're not checking in with ourselves as much. You know, we're constantly bombarded with information, whether it's about the pandemic or if it's about racial equity or police brutality or things happening in the world. There's a lot of information being thrown at us all the time. There's also potentially a lot of distractions in our life. And so this practice allows us the opportunity to pause and check in with ourselves and see how we're doing. And that can be really challenging. It's not that easy to sort of be still and be present. Take a long, big breath in here. Exhale, bring your torso upright. And then you'll just swing your right leg underneath your left, coming into a square pose or fire log pose, you might have heard it called. But your left ankle will be just outside of your right knee. Same thing, your right foot, right ankle, or just outside of your left knee. If it feels like your left knee is really up high in the air, you can always bring a cushion or a blanket underneath that knee to support it a little bit more. I personally have very open hips, so I can have my legs stacked and I actually don't feel sensation. So if this is you, you can bring your hands to the outsides of your feet and then press into your feet while you fold forward over your legs. For those of you that don't have ridiculously, apparently, open hips like I do, you can always keep a straight spine here, encouraging your knees to press into the earth. You could also begin to walk your arms forward, just as we did. We won't be in this shape for too long because I didn't forget. I know we still have our right side. Here in this square pose, it really gets more into the hip flexors. Also, potentially the outer hips, maybe more so one hip than the other for you. But wherever you are, can you relax the muscles in your legs? Can you breathe deeply and fully into your belly? Really allow yourself this moment to just be fully present in your body, in your experience. Big full breath in here. Sigh it out the mouth. Slowly walk your torso upright. Extend your legs long in front of you for a moment. Ooh, a little bit of tightness for me in my left knee. You might hop your legs up and down, just kind of tapping your knees. Maybe windshield wiper your feet, swish them from side to side. Since we were rounding forward, it might feel good to kind of open up through your heart, open up through the chest. And then whenever you feel ready, you'll come to lie down on your belly again. Or excuse me, we're going to come into Sleeping Swan. You will not go onto your belly. So coming into all fours, making sure that your knees are hip-width distance apart. And then you'll bring this time your right knee just behind your right wrist. Your left foot will be somewhere behind your left hand, and then you'll begin to walk your left leg or slide your left leg back. I didn't say this on the first side, but if you have any pressure in your knee, your left knee specifically, and it feels uncomfortable, you can always bring a cushion or a blanket underneath that knee. And again, you might come down onto your forearms. If that's accessible for you, bring one hand to your back. Make sure that your hips are level. If you find that you're sinking more toward one side, offer yourself some support with a blanket, a cushion, a textbook, whatever it is, underneath the hip that is hiking up more to the ceiling or sinking more lower to the earth. And then again, you can choose to stay on your forearms. Maybe you wing your elbows out to the side and allow your torso to melt over your right leg. The more you have your torso closer to the ground, though, the more intense sensation that will be inside the inner right hip and your hip flexor. Your hips are heavy, moving towards the ground. There shouldn't be any pressure in your right knee. If there is, you can always bring some padding underneath it. You might feel a stretch across the top of your left thigh, maybe a stretch in the inner right leg along the groin. So targeting that liver meridian again with the inner leg line. Remember, you can choose to let your head hang heavy. If that doesn't feel accessible, you can always remember to keep your neck in line with the rest of your spine, tucking your chin gently toward your chest and elongating the crown of your head forward to give some length to your spine and your neck. Relax the muscles in your legs. Relax the muscles in your face, your jaw. Seeing if you can breathe through the discomfort. You did it on one side, right? So you know that it's temporary. The discomfort is temporary. This discomfort and stress that we are applying to our body allows our body to become healthier and more resilient. So similar to how you work a muscle, right? By these repetitive movements and building on the amount of weight you use, you're stressing the muscle so that it becomes healthier. So small amounts of stress actually help us become stronger. Take a big breath in here. Exhale, straighten the arms. Sink over to your right side for a moment. Then swing your left leg forward. Extend your legs long for a moment. Maybe kind of massage out your legs. And then you'll, let's see, how did I do this on the first side? So you'll stack your right ankle just above your left knee. Excuse me. And you'll relax both your legs. Encourage your right knee to move down towards the earth. Oh, no, we're going to do our twist first. There we go. So you'll actually take your right foot, plant it just outside your left thigh. And then remember to maybe wrap your left arm around your right leg. Bring yourself into a really long spine. Reach your crown of your head towards the ceiling, the crown of your head towards the ceiling. And then whenever you feel ready, begin to twist towards the right, maybe bringing your right hand behind you for some support to keep your spine long. And again, we want to find that 4 or 5 out of 10 here, specifically in our spine and our side waist. We don't want to be twisting to our maximum effort, right? We don't want it to be too intense. We want to find that sort of middle sweet spot of not too intense, not too gentle. I'm just now realizing when we were in our Sleeping Swan, I didn't offer eye on the needle. So if you took it on the first side, I hope you remembered to take it on the second side. I'm sorry I missed that. So if you're like me and you notice that your mind is distracted, as evidenced by me rethinking the sequence, come back to the sensation that you're experiencing in your body. If it feels safe to do so, come back to the sensation of your breath as you breathe in and out. Come back to the sensation of your body against the floor or the earth, your clothing against your skin. Breathing deeply to massage your midsection. Remembering that you have the ability to breathe really fully and deeply into your torso, expanding from side to side and even front to back. Really nourishing your body, your muscles, your connective tissues, all with that breath. Got less than a minute here, so notice if you need to gently ease out of the twist if it feels too intense, or if perhaps you want to stay where you are, or even twist gently a little bit deeper if it's available to you. But remember, deeper isn't better. There is something to Yin Yoga about staying in the same shape where you've got that 4 or 5 out of 10. Inhale deeply. Exhale, gently release your torso from the twist. Maybe extend both your legs for a moment. You might sort of open and close the legs like you were kind of doing like a snow angel with your legs. Maybe you gently twist your torso over to the left for a moment just to sort of counteract that twist, but not too deeply, very gently towards the left. And then whenever you feel ready, we'll come back to that forward bend with our shoelace pose. So again, we'll straighten our left leg and bring your right foot just above your left knee. And then you can choose to press your hands into the ground on either side of your hips. You can choose to maybe walk yourself forward so that your torso starts to come over your legs, but with a straight spine. Or you might round forward over your legs. That is probably going to be the more deeper expression of the shape, as you might experience an increase in sensation along the back of your right leg, as well as more pressure in your hip flexors. It might even be more pressure in the right knee. If you're finding that there's a little bit too much pressure in the right knee, one, make sure that your left ankle is not resting on your knee. You want it to be above the knee, not on the knee joint. And you might bring your blanket underneath your left knee for some support. Again, finding what works for you here, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10. And then holding in relative stillness. Imagine that your pelvis is really rooted to the earth and you can grow your spine long out of that. You might play with rounding forward for a moment, letting your head hang heavy, and then switching to keeping a long spine, having your neck and your head in line with the rest of your spine. Remember to take full deep breaths here. Ensuring that you can breathe fully into your belly even if you're folded forward. As a reminder here, we're getting more into the liver meridian along the inner leg line, the inner right leg. Take a long breath in. Exhale, slowly straighten your torso upright. Swing your left leg underneath your right and stack your legs so that you're in that square pose or fire log pose. So again, your feet are outside of your knees respectively. And if you feel like your right knee is really far away from your left foot, you can always bring something underneath it for support. And then if this feels like it's enough with your knees pressing towards the ground, if that feels like it's enough sensation, you can keep your spine long, plant your hands alongside you, or you might potentially round yourself forward over your legs, but find what works for you here. Again, finding that 4 or 5 out of 10. If you have really open hips and folding forward doesn't necessarily provide much sensation along the inner leg line in your hips, you can press your hands into your feet, and that will potentially enhance the stretch in the hips, in the hip flexors, the hip joints. For me, it also activates a little bit my outer hips, which is getting into the gallbladder meridians. Whereas the sensation along the inner leg line and the groin is that liver meridian. Well, I don't know this to be fully true, but you'll often hear that yoga teachers will say twists and such can really detox the body and kind of wring out the body. And I think potentially where they're getting that from is through these liver and gallbladder meridians, right? Those are two parts of our body that I think the gallbladder does too, that kind of rinse toxins from our system and sort of detoxify the body. And you'll notice that part of these meridians is those twists, right? So I don't know, maybe our practice was detoxifying us today. As you feel ready, take a full breath in and exhale. Slowly begin to walk yourself upright. Maybe extend your legs long in front of you and windshield them from side to side. You might notice that your body at times felt a little achy after you would come out of a shape. I know I have definitely felt that in my body. And that achiness, if it's like a dull ache, is a sign that you've targeted those connective tissues in your body. So they are not ones that move like muscles they're not ones that move from us stretching them really quickly, right? We have to apply this constant pressure so that they slowly start to shift. And when we do that, it causes that achiness in the body. So go ahead and whenever you feel ready, come to lie down on your mat. We'll be moving into Shavasana, and I have a couple of offerings. One, you might extend your legs long on the mat, letting your feet go side to side, resting your arms long alongside you. You could also bring your legs into a butterfly shape, so bringing the soles of your feet together, knees wing out to the side. This is going to continue to really massage into the liver meridians along the inner leg line, but it can also be a really intense stretch across the groin and maybe even pull on the knees. So you can always bring your feet further away from you to lessen the intensity across your inner leg line. Or you can even bring some supports like a stack of books or pillows to the outside of your knees to offer them some support. Wherever you are, let yourself sink in here to the mat, to your floor. Take a few cleansing inhales and exhales to just really release any of your day that you don't need, any part of the practice that you're still holding on to. Exhaling out any sensation still lingering in your body. If it feels safe to do so, closing your eyes. If you prefer to keep them open, maybe focus softly on a non-moving point. Relax your forehead. Let your eyes be heavy. Your jaw is soft. Your neck soft. Your heart is open. Shoulders melt towards the earth. Your legs and your pelvis are heavy. Your breath is full and deep in your belly, in your lungs, your ribs expand side to side. Start to take some deeper inhales and exhales. Letting the breath wake the body, and slowly rolling out your wrists. If you're in that supine butterfly shape, gently bring your hands to the outside of your thighs and bring your legs together, bending your knees, keeping your feet flat on the earth for a moment. If you had your legs long, you can bend your knees as well. Bring your feet flat to your mat. Maybe windshield wiper your legs side to side for a moment. And then slowly, with your eyes closed or a soft gaze, roll over to one side and gently bring yourself up for a seated position. Spine is long, pelvis is rooted. Your spine grows long out of your pelvis. Your shoulders are aligned over your hips. Your core is gently engaged to keep your torso nice and upright. Ears are stacked over your shoulders and your crown of head reaches towards the ceiling. Bring your left hand to rest over your heart, fingers spread wide. Right hand rests on top of left. Apply a gentle pressure here. Offer your body a sense of comfort. Take a big breath in. And exhale. 2 more. Big breath in. And exhale. Last one, make it count. Big breath in. Exhale, let it go. Slowly lower your hands to your knees. Gently tuck your chin and blink open your eyes. Come back to the space. Thank you so much for being here. I know we went a minute or two over. My hair is a mess. Just so you're aware, next week I will be out. I'm not sure if there is coverage, but if there is, you can sign on to the Northeastern Spiritual Life YouTube page to see who's covering. But I hope that you all take care of yourselves. If you're starting class this week, best of luck. You've got this. You're going to be great. Don't forget to do I am here. Drink lots of water today. It's warm out. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Take good care.